So this is my fifth experiment. Now I'm gonna explain about the banking application using the exceptions. So first, initially I'm giving all the predefined exceptions in one statement. Then talking about so many exceptions. First there is format exception, overflow exception, out of memory exception, then input output exception, and finally there is an exception. So to talk about the format exception, what is, I have to give the value in integer, but for example I'm giving it in a string, like for example like this. So I get something called format exception because input string was not in a correct format. Then talking about the overflow exception, I give so many values like this, and if I click I get it as overflow exception because like it was too large or too small for an integer. Then to talk about the out of memory exception, like definitely we cannot show that. Then output exception, finally there is an catch exception. This go to statement is a jump statement. If if does not satisfy, then it go back to the same condition. Then all these exceptions contain so many catches. So if this is not satisfied, it will come back to this one. Then if it is not satisfied, it will come back to the next catch, the next catch, and finally it will come to the final catch. Then if it is not satisfied, or if it has a go to statement which is jump back. Then now there are so many other exceptions. So first to talk about the invalid password exception. So there is a class called invalid password exception. And application exception is an inherited class which is declared there. Then this is a constructor which has been used, and then we give something called invalid password exception. We print something called invalid password exception, and this contains so many try catch also. So to talk about that try and catch, so this part talks about that invalid password exception. So first we have to enter the username. The username and the password should be same according to this condition which is given inside the try. And if this is successful, then we get something called login successful, and we continue. After continuing, it will ask the three different choices, where one will refer to the open account, two is edit details, and third one is access. So we give the choice, and according to the choice it will get executed. For example, if it is one open account, we ask for the account holder name, then unique ID, phone number, and it will ask for the type of type of account. And if all these are not satisfied, then finally it will come back to this part, like where it throws new invalid password exception, ID or pass. Then now to talk about the low balance exception. So there is a class called initial low balance exception, initial balance low. Then there is, which is been inherited, and here there is a constructor, and we are writing something called initial balance low exception. So in order to do these things, so first we give the choice as 1. So we enter the username called admin, and the password also we give it as admin. Then we get a something called login successful, continue. So first it is an open account, so we are giving the name as Christy, then account unique ID something as 365, then phone number also something we give it like this. Then it is asking, so we give it as savings maybe. Then do you want account? Yes. Then deposit minimum of 500 in the account. So if I give 500, it tells, do you want to deposit more, enter account. I give it as 355, and you have opened an account successfully. Then same thing, but if you give something called same account holder, name it as Christy, and ID, if it give it as 763, and the phone number something like this, and I give it as savings. Then do you want to open an account? Yes. So deposit minimum, so this is 4. If I give it as 400, then it tells something called initial balance low. So now I'm going to explain about that. initial balance low exception. So this part talks about that initial balance low exception, where this refers to like I am fixing the amount to something, and if I deposit less than that, this part refers to that. So I deposit minimum of 500 in the account, and if the balance is less than 500, so throw new initial balance loans, that is minimum rupees 500 is required, and it will ask for the type of savings, and you want to deposit more, enter the account we are depositing and we are entering the account. Then there is something, another exception called the withdraw exception. So there is a class called withdraw exception, and there is which has been inherited from application exception, and this is a constructor. Public withdrawal limit exception string, this is a constructor, and we are typing something called withdrawal limit exception. So this can be so this is explained below. I mean, now I will be talking about that, talking about the withdraw exception. um, So withdraw exception is like, maybe I'll be, so if it is withdraw exception, for example, I'm giving the second one as account holder. So I'm giving the username as Christy, and I'm giving the password as something called PSA, or okay, enter your account number. I give it as like this, and first third option I give it as, so enter the amount. I give something like maybe 70,000. So I get something called withdraw limit exception, because the limit is only to like 20,000, but I give something beyond the limit. So it will throw an exception called the withdrawal limit exception. This part explains about that. So first we are writing something called, so exception caught trying to withdraw limit to 20,000, and we if the limit is like not proper, then it will throw the exception. And thank you.